Hey, and welcome to Cosmic Blueprint Show with, your co-host, Kate of Gaia, just waiting for the host to show up, Tony Z. And we have a special guest tonight. We have Scott again. We've had Scott on before with his story of trying to import a car into Australia and the kind of stuff that he was exposing to show everyone that the Australian government is actually a corporation that is registered in none other than Washington, D.C., and of course, for those that have been listening to Outside the Box and my silly little voice over the last couple of weeks will know that this game is a whole lot stranger than we ever thought it could have been. But that's another story. Hand me the hamster on the riverbank. Tony, are you there? Your mic's hot.
Yeah, I'm here, Kate. How's it going, okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Cool.
I was just
trying to bring Scott in right now.
Yeah, no worries.
He's having some trouble with Skype sending him around in circles, which is strange, to say the least.
But, that's more normal than not. So, but I mean, for those that remember, we had Scott. I had him on Outside the Box, I guess about a month ago now, and he was giving us the rundown from his video, which was absolutely hilarious. I have a shiny badge. Some of the things that he brought to the fore in that video, it was beyond funny. It was. It was madness, pure madness, and it showed the governments for exactly what they are: garbage, corporate fictions with people that don't know anything really about what's going on, and they get a sense of, I call it ELSI, which is my anachronism for elevated level of self-importance. I know many people with ELSI, and I guess that's probably the only thing that really drives me nuts when people get that, and can we just get along? So just waiting here. There he is. Got him on the board now. And Scott's mic is going hot. Tony, the show is yours.
Excellent. Like I say, I'm pleased to see everybody here tonight. Good to be back again. We have now got Scott in the chat room. And can you hear me, Scott?
Yeah, Tony, is that you?
Yeah, it is, mate. How are you getting on?
Yeah, better now that I've got all those Skype login things out of the way.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing. That sends you around in circles a few times, to say the least, doesn't it?
Yeah, no dramas.
Yeah, good to hear your voice, Scott. I guess we'll get an update on what's been going on over the last month since we had you on the air the last time.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Kate. Well, it's been really interesting, actually. Very positive feedback from a lot of folk writing in and sending emails in, ranging from those who had pretty much given up on the challenge, who've seen the documentary and gone, oh, okay, it's that simple, is it? I can just ask a question as to who they are. And it's been very encouraging, the number of emails that have come in from folk who've just gone, yeah, I'm back in the game now. And then to others who are really at a, advanced stage of poking around. And, they've just been complimentary to be able to share it amongst their friends in a format that is actually, they've been able to look at it and enjoy it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing when you give people a little bit of confidence, and that's all it takes. And I've been talking about baby steps for a long time, and that's all it really needs is whenever they see it, how simple it is, and it really is. It's just a matter of asking questions to watch these people spin out. It's a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And no, that's the simple part about it is ultimately all we're doing is asking these questions. And the embarrassing thing for those claiming to be government is that when they don't answer these questions now after, for me, I've been pushing this for over 12 months, is it just looks really, really embarrassing. It just cements their position as, we don't have the answer, we're not going to answer, or they just look...
They look absolutely ridiculous, and that's the thing. I'd mentioned at the outside of the show about ELSI, my anachronism for elevated level of self-importance, and that's what all these government people suffer from. And when they're actually handed something that they cannot answer to see their complete inadequacy in the office that they are claiming to be holding, yeah, that takes a lot of the air out of their sails when all of a sudden it's not just they can't hide behind a badge, they can't hide behind a title, they can't hide behind a desk, and they can't hide behind their secretary, because now all of a sudden they're held accountable, and they get to expose themselves for the lack of knowledge they truly have.
Yeah, I heard you mention earlier on about the look at my badge, and that seems to be going around Australia quite well at the moment.
That was the funniest bit in the whole thing, and it's so true. Look at my badge. I don't have to answer you. Look at my badge.
The ironic thing was each one of those little cartoons was based on something that effectively happened. You got the Department of Transport essentially saying, get stuffed. You've got generic stuff cut and pasted into a letter that is at the end of a chain of whole sequences of direct communication and even invoices, and you get this bit of generic crap cut and pasted into the bottom of a letter that says, if you have any specific inquiries, I suggest you contact your broker. So each one of those little cartoons actually had a full element of truth in it. And I thought that was a great way of lightening it up a little bit for those who still see this as a very deep subject.
Yeah, I was going to say it's about as deep as a bowl of soup. Tony?
Yeah, I was going to say, have you had any official responses from any officials of any kind as to any kind of, I don't know, I suppose you could say recognition for one thing and confirmation for another?
No, absolute silence. So I suppose we've got more frequently unanswered questions. The interesting thing has been that a lot of people have been taking up that documentary as a tool and sending it off to their ministers or politicians or whatever, those who call themselves representatives, and they've been using it as a tool and saying, well, excuse me, Mr. Minister, could you please comment? Could you please give me some guidance on this to see if it's actually happening? And the overwhelming response to that has just been absolute silence. So they're getting more of the same thing that they're asking about. But the good thing has been people who haven't really got a deep founding in this sort of subject have just been able to use that documentary as a tool, cut and paste it into an email and send it off, and kind of blame me in many ways. But then a couple of folk I've noticed have been writing in to their ministers saying, well, I'm getting a little bit concerned now. You haven't responded to my earlier questions. I'm starting to think that this situation has got some merit, and that you are working for a company and you're not really representing me at all. What's going on?
Exactly.
And so they're turning the heat up, but using a tool and keeping themselves at a little bit of distance, so it's quite safe for them. And yet they've happily jumped in and gone, well, yeah, I'm going to ask my minister and see what he's got to say about this.
Yeah, it's interesting. This sort of thing's happening all over the planet. It's really good, and it's good to see when you put a lot of hard work and a lot of hard effort into putting something together like that. All you want is people to use it, isn't it? That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. So that's been great. And even from all around the world, Canada, the US, the response has been great. The Canadians have jumped on board because I think they're probably the most closely associated with this sort of setup that we've got. So yeah, it's been well received all round.
Awesome. Have you had any sort of like well-known individuals come back to you and say, hey, that's some film you've put together or anything?
Well, I suppose I've done a handful of interviews now. None such from any, I suppose, celebrities, if you like, although I've taken to calling the various government departments that go and have a look at my website as celebrities, because they're kind of high-profile actors, really. But that's we've had quite a few few of the government departments. We've had Minister for Home Affairs, which was the boss of Customs. We've had the Federal Police were in there the other day. The Parliament House was poking around quite nicely, learning about letters patent. The Department of Lands was in there. Department of Education, Employment and Workplace Relations were having a look. Department of Parliamentary Services in Western Australia. There's quite a long list of these so-called departments that have been having a look, but we don't know whether that's just folk who are going, oh, that's interesting, and share that round the lunchroom or the coffee machine, or whether it's actually various folk in government who are sitting up going, oh, maybe I better pay attention to this and see whether my next website that I should be looking at is the employment jobs for sale or jobs for hire website.
Well, maybe they've actually all been found out and they're actually thinking, oh, right, who can I blame this on? And there's nobody stood there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good set a fire under them now and again, isn't it? Warm the heat up a little bit and get them. Maybe there are quite a lot of people in there that were doing these, what they thought were upstanding jobs, working for organisations that they thought were genuine and upstanding, and then beginning to realise, well, hang on a minute, where's the evidence?
Yeah.
And the evidence actually leads them in the opposite direction, not in the direction they thought that it did. For those that are naive enough to think that they were working on the right side.
Yeah. Well, the good thing, I think, has been the distilling it down into what the real essence of how to go about asking these questions of so-called government. And it's mirrored quite nicely with the states. And there's been a couple of documentaries and videos around that I've been watching with the states, where they're pointing back to, I think, 1871 and the introduction of their second constitution, or the corporate one. And I suppose the same thing goes for Australia, Canada, UK, is to identify if you've got that possibility of there being two systems, whether they run in parallel or one's just being completely left behind. But if you can find the evidence of there being two of the same thing, that gives you the tools to be able to poke around as to which one's legitimate.
Okay, I was gonna maybe toss another perspective at you.
Yep.
Something that everyone listening right now probably doesn't know. Well, actually, the ones that tune into Freedom Range regularly know exactly where I'm going. I don't shop at Walmart. I go straight to the deal counter. There's no real easy way to say this, but effectively, it goes far beyond two layers. And we have dug and dug and dug, and we finally hit the tink, tink, tink top of the treasure chest. And I mean that quite literally. And just something to think about. We'll go off on this another time, but I just want you guys to continue. I just want to, what do you think would happen if, this is just a toss it out there. What do you think would happen if your birth certificate never kind of made it to where it was supposed to, and you were given a fraudulent receipt that you thought mattered, and all your identification was made with it and everything else, and anytime you used it, you were actually in fact using an unlawful and illegal name in fraud? How would that sit with you?
I think most people would be fairly disturbed as a result of hearing that.
Well, that's kind of where it is, and that's what we've uncovered. So that's we'll touch on that later. Tony has to jet out at the top of this hour because you're going over to Rents Radio, Tony?
Indeed, yeah. I've been asked on to Rents. They're doing a multicast over many different shows, and it's a bit of a marathon that they've got going there, trying to raise awareness. So I'm just trying to do a bit to help out.
Yeah, so we can kind of touch on that in the second hour, and I'm going to take you. Hey, Tony, remember the other day I said the answer had to be in Oz, down under?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the answer is in Oz, certainly down under, but not in the same way that most people think. But definitely, Scott, we're going to have a really, really cool and fun chat in the second hour. But I want you to what you're doing and what you're inspiring with people is that beautiful, simplistic approach of the little engine that could. I know I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. Now we're going to get them to the point where they're at the crest of the hill and they're going over. I knew I could. I knew I could. And this is critical. This is the tipping point where every time I think of this, there's one scene from a movie that triggers with me. Did either of you guys ever see The Patriot? The Mel Gibson movie about the independence?
Ooh, a long time ago, I think.
Okay. Do you remember the scene right at the very end of the movie when the Cornwallis decided to throw all his reserves in, and we're going to end it here, and he sends all his reserves and rushes them forward in a bayonet charge, and as they crest the hill, then they see the bulk of the colonial army that was in hiding, basically an ambush, and when they were rushing up the hill to rout the British, it got to a bit of a stalemate, and some of the colonials started to retreat. And there was one scene where this young man was running, like retreating, and Mel Gibson had picked up the flag to rally the troops, so to speak, and he's not armed or anything, and he's carrying this flag and saying forward, march. And the scene that sticks in my head, and this is what I see the people at right now, is the kid is carrying his rifle and he's retreating, and then he sees Mel and he turns around and he goes, oh well, maybe we can do this, and he turns around and he started and that was for me, that was the absolute turning point of the battle. That's when the little engine that said I think I can turns into the I know I can. And every time, like what you've been talking about, and every time someone does this, that's exactly the picture I get in my mind, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy, and what, by the look of it, we'll look at in the second hour is the deeper or the bigger toolkit.
It's a big one. It's actually got a sledgehammer in the toolbox.
Brilliant. So I've definitely been working on the introductory material, you could say, for a lot of folk, and that's probably been very well received for all those folk who are sitting on the couch and up until this point didn't think they could, to use your words.
Yeah,
And now it's like, okay, maybe we can. Maybe we can ask a few questions around, and it's been really good, the number of folk who've gone, you know what, actually, it's not good enough anymore. I'm not going to pay this money. I'm not going to pay this mob. I'm going to ask them first for evidence that they're legitimate or lawful. And that's been very encouraging. That I suppose it's like that little guy with his rifle turning around and going, okay, I'm now going back into battle.
Yeah, they've been re-inspired, and again, it only takes a handful of people to pick up the flag, unarmed, and to say, you know what? No, we're not going to take this anymore, and and I'm not saying for people to go into battle. It's just an analogy, people, just to give you what I'm trying to get across is that inspiration moment within, that deep welling knowingness that says there's something wrong. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto, and they decide to pick up the bucket of water of truth and melt the witch.
Yep. And you're right, it's that knowing inside you that you can do this. And it's the knowing, hang on a minute, I actually am the one who gives the power to the so-called government. So it's actually me that's the source of their power.
Mm-hmm.
And actually remembering that, if you like, because a lot of us seem to have forgotten it, when we get back to knowing that, and that the true power is within yourself, that's and it, like you said, it's not battling, it's just an analogy for changing your direction or your thinking to go, actually, I'm going to ask a few questions and poke around a little bit here and find out what's happening.
Yeah, it's like the scene in The Matrix when Neo finds himself when he takes the pill, he finds himself in that vat as a battery cell, and he decides to rip the cables off.
Yep.
And that's what people are doing. They're starting to rip their own cables off. They're all becoming Neo, and that's where the consciousness is going to awaken, and it is, and it's awakening at an exponential rate. I don't know if everyone else is feeling it, but I sure as hell am, and it's something to behold.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's phenomenal. The feeling is just so positive. Everywhere you turn lately has been another unraveling of the matrix.
Yep, it's happening everywhere, and it's not just on one thing as well, because the same pattern has been played over and over again, from pharmaceuticals to politics to laws to systems, constructs, everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yep, it's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we touched on a radio show recently was just the wording within, say, for example, the Australian Constitution. And it's been quite interesting to see people go, oh, yeah, actually it does say that in the Constitution. And they had been previously unaware of something as simple as just a couple of words in the Constitution. Go on.
Kate's brilliant, absolutely awesome at etymology. What does Constitution break down at, Kate? Can you tell us?
Oh, how many versions do you want?
You choose.
Okay, well, I'll give you the simple one. We'll start with the simple. Back in 1913, there's that Black's Law coming up again all the time. I'm just hooked on this thing. Anyway, Webster's 1913 dictionary decided to change. Well, a lot of things happened in 1913, but here's one of the key ones. Con used to mean against, all right, as in know your pros and cons, as in fors and against, right? Or without, for and without. And in 1913, they decided to, okay, well, we're going to make it mean, duality. It can mean for or against, right? So and again, it was a very helpful hint for us in seeing the duality of good and evil and everything. So now we have constitution. Statute means to stand or to have standing. So now we have with standing or without standing. Then we can go into the sounds of the words. Constitution. Sounds like you're pushing it away. So there's a lot of back and forth with the magic in the word. But again, as anyone has listened in the past, that has all been decoded down to the literal Vesica Pisces creation of the flower of life, or the flower of life. Again, you got to kind of look at the words in multi-dimensional. So you have a word that means con for standing, or con against standing, or notwithstanding. So that is effectively the government's notwithstanding clause, if you will. Now, we can take it down into, I'll go letter by letter just to show you the intricacies of a word. C, and this is all lowercase, by the way. I don't deal with capital L letters, which are money. Money, you speak money capital, right? If you have capital in your name, you have money in your name. So I don't use capital L. That's two Greek letters with L, the power of spirit, in that sound alone. So let's go C-O-N, right? So we have C, which is the open letter of the open O of creation, which means, and is the note of love, which means love is unconditional. So we have, and then you have O, which is creation itself, the circle of life, N, which is a possessive letter only. That's all it's meant to be, is it makes it mine. So we have the open letter, the open C of creation of love, in creation, mine. The S is the Kundalini, or the serpent, which is the power of the spirit. T is the note of love. I, which is lowercase, is the one with the dot above, which is the higher and lower self. Again, we have love, T, and then I-O-N, which is ion, or energy, as its own word. So you have a love ion instead of shun. So you have I again with the dot. So that's you, the creator, in your perfect duality. O, creation, mine. So it really, and I can go on and on about it, but that just gives you an idea of the intricacy of the spells that were cast upon us when people are spewing out words willy-nilly. It's no wonder this place was such a mess, because there were spells getting cast everywhere. And when you kind of get to a certain level of understanding, you don't think or believe anymore. You know that it is pure magic when you can see it. And as I was saying, was it yesterday, Tony, on the show? Yeah, about a week ago,
yep.
Compared to right now, I was totally unconscious.
Yep.
How's that for an epiphany for you? That's why I only deal in it now. So there's the word constitution for you.
Yeah, certainly so much for a level playing field.
Oh, yeah. Well, we leveled it.
This is the point. There's a lot of work gone on behind the scenes, but it's also, I mean, it's been right in our face as well when you think of it. I mean, if you think about the Statue of Liberty. Now, when you say the Statue of Liberty, people think, oh, yeah, you know, I've got liberty and all the rest of it. Well, when you think about it, you haven't. If you had liberty, you wouldn't be under this construct. And the construct of money, the construct of law, the confines to a country without a passport, the confines that you can't drive a car without a licence, you know, and all these constructs that confine your being, your experience as a human being. And that's the point. It was only liberty. Here's us thinking it was freedom, and it wasn't freedom. It was the opposite. It was a prison, and we're on it, prison planet Earth. But just breaking it down a piece at a time, and you know, and it just all comes out of Pandora's box. Yeah,
as you said, a piece at a time, and the pieces that you introduce to the masses is got to be the very top layer, or the icing on the cake.
Yeah, so that which is right in front of you, but you know, you dig and dig and dig, and as Kate says, you eventually hit the treasure chest.
Yeah, the gold nuggets and the treasure is certainly there.
Yeah, enter the keys of Peter and various other things. That's another deeper story. But,
yes.
Good stuff.
Yeah, we'll cover that more in the second hour. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay, awesome. So, anything else been happening to you? You say you've been doing some radio interviews. Good ones?
Jumped on. We had Leon from Fair Dinkum Radio, a show in Australia, and we spent an hour or so chatting there. And also Vinnie Eastwood from New Zealand. Spent a couple of hours on the Vinnie Eastwood show. And they were really good, actually. Vinnie had some great quotes that he pulled out from fascist Italy and all sorts, and just weaved it in quite nicely. And no, that was good. Otherwise, I'm actually on one next week with the Decrypted Matrix in the US and Revealing Talk Radio. So, no, it's been really good, actually, in terms of the audiences around the world to follow along with this little story, and just see what they can do to do the same sort of thing.
Absolutely. Like you were saying, it inspires people to look at that a little bit deeper, and maybe I just will have a quick peek at this and see what lies down that big black hole. Something else we were discussing the other day, as Kate was saying, basically, we had Ben Gilroy on the show last night.
Right.
And, I don't know if you know about Ben.
Someone sent me a link to his work just recently. Haven't looked at it yet.
Yeah. Well, what he's doing is challenging the status quo in Ireland, basically, and he's set up Direct Democracy Party in order to say, basically, well, hang on, you've had the reins, you've driven us straight into a black hole through the IMF and through all these bankers and the bailouts and all this, that and the other, and we're not having it anymore. And he's standing up to the bailiffs, he's standing up to the establishments, and he's really peeling the layers off in Ireland. So that's all good stuff, and it was a wonderful interview. Really well.
Brilliant.
That's why I said, is there anybody sort of like drafted come over to you as if to say, well, look, let's have a look at what you're doing, because we're doing something similar and it gels. You know?
Not as such. I've had sort of individuals sort of interested to talk. I actually had someone from the Australian Taxation Office ring up and spent a couple of hours talking on the phone to them. They were quite interested to hear about what was going on, having seen the documentary, and they actually work there. So that was an interesting conversation, learning about some of the things that they're being forced to do against the people. And obviously it wasn't sitting well with this person to start asking a few questions, and I think their life was made a little bit difficult as a result of doing so within the ATO. Then again, you're kind of biting the hand that feeds you if you're in that position, which is a little unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to be frank about this. We've got to be honest. I mean, again, this is something that keeps cropping up. If you're in the police force, for example, and you don't understand about the dangers of the pharmaceutical industry, what's behind the big pharma, really, the modes, methods, and modalities that they roll with, basically, chemicals, and you're taking your 5-year-old, your 3-year-old, your baby, whatever, to get vaccinations, and you're, as a police officer, you're out there on the front lines enforcing the same regime that's going to inject squalene, thimerosal, mercury into your own baby, and you're enforcing that shit. In other words, you need to get wise pretty quickly to realise that you're the ones that are actually bringing it in. Just because you were not aware of just because you were ignorant of what you were doing, and I don't mean that with any malice, just because you didn't take the time to look at the ingredients of the vaccine, what you're doing is you're helping to bring in your own enslavement, and that's what we're actually looking at now. You're damaging yourself, you're damaging your family, you're damaging your future generations, and you're damaging the rest of the human race doing it. And ignorance is no defence of the law, is it?
No. A similar analogy ties in with the likes of debt collectors going out kicking people out of their houses.
Totally.
They're under the same sort of pressure from the banks with the mortgages that they owe, and yet they're going out supporting the same system in exactly the same way you were saying about those taking your children down to the doctor and filling them up full of poison. Yep. And it comes from that not knowing, which has perhaps been the most useful tool that's come out of this documentary, is the way of encouraging those folk to actually look at this subject and see if they can get some knowledge. And this is, I'm talking about the likes of ministers and local government and that sort of thing, was to pose the question to them of are they lawfully appointed? Is their authority valid?
Something I want to jump in here is a lot of this for me is fear porn. And I'm going to put it really simple for people. We're gone, in terms of vaccines and the rest of this crap and whatever, we've gone far past the point of asking questions when we have the facts in front of us. What people need to start doing is, if they've had their child vaccinated, what I'm going to urge them to do is go in and check what the chemicals are that are being injected. And we know the myriad of things that are happening with the children. And what needs to happen is a few doctors need to get charged with attempted murder. Based on the studies that are there, the cases, if you want, and it's only going to take a handful of these guys, and I mean this with the most love possible. You can claim all the ignorance you want, but I'll tell you this right now: if you, as a doctor, especially a doctor that's listening, and I hope there are many, you as a doctor have a responsibility to preserving life. And when you're pumping a poison into a child, especially a newborn, you are effectively creating a potential environment. And you've heard Pete talk about the Walmart idiots that are offering vaccines. What are you going to do in the case of anaphylactic shock? Where someone is going to literally go in convulsions and die in front of you. What needs to happen is, if a parent out there that's had their child vaccinated and didn't realize what was going on there, and they do the research, it's a perfect case to file criminal charges, motion for attempted murder in a court. I don't think it'll take too many of those to get the point across real quick. No more questioning, guys. No more questioning. It's now it's about doing it. It's about accountability, and it's about self-accountability. You know, I wouldn't do that to a child because I know what it is. And just because you don't know what you're doing doesn't give, you know, it's I didn't know what was going to happen when I pulled the trigger and this thing was pointed in someone's face. You still killed them. You know? Mm. So that's an involuntary manslaughter charge, but there's still a minimum of 3 years there. You might find some doctors with involuntary manslaughter charges spending a bit of time wondering, you know, for themselves. But again, it's not about vengeance. This is about this is the net result of your action in ignorance, willful ignorance, I might add, because a doctor and a nurse, anyone that's been trained in vaccinating anyone at all, has a very serious responsibility because they're punching through the most protective thing we have, our skin. Mm. We have the ability to save ourselves anyway. It's called urine. We'll get into that another time, but I mean, you have your own antivenom within you. You don't need any of this shite. You create for yourself the perfect antiviral, the perfect antifungal, and you create it. And guess what? When they say you're pissing your life away, they mean it, because in your urine are stem cells, T cells, the perfect antivenom for anything that ails you. It's the hair of the dog that bit you. You know? So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on it. I'm done with the fear porn. It's time to get some stuff done.
Yeah, it's a couple of those little cases would certainly assist in, I suppose, waking those out of their slumber of, I suppose, their automatic reaction of turning around and citing all the publications that they ordinarily use to justify those actions. If you could shake them out of that slumber and with the, as you said, a couple of those cases, that would certainly do the trick.
Yeah, it wouldn't take long for that to go around the medical community like wildfire. Yeah, oh, wait a minute, I'm not going to punch a child with a needle anymore. So much for pharma. So, you know, if you're going to put a fire out, don't go at the branches or up the top. You have to hit it at the base. So hit it at source, and then we end it. It's, you know, people, have we had enough? Have we had enough? And it's our responsibility. We're just as culpable if we don't do anything about it. You know, so this is about saving ourselves, not about vengeance at all.
And in getting to that point where people are willing to take those actions, there's quite a transition of those who are eager to jump in and will have the tools to be able to do that straight away. And there are others at the opposite end of that spectrum who are in their slumber and citing all the publications and the acts and the rules and believing everything's all rosy. To get those people to the other end of the spectrum, to where they say, "Nah, had enough of this," there's quite a journey for them.
Yeah, but this is the point. It has to start somewhere. Every journey starts with a single step. And what I was going to point out, reference to vaccination thing, people need to look at guys like Gary Knoll. If you do a YouTube search on Gary Knoll, he's been trying to fight the vaccination companies for years and dragging the FDA into court and all sorts of other things. But there are people out there doing this sort of thing. And it's only people like yourself, Scott, and people like Gary Knoll and Kate, etc., that actually get that when people are out there doing it, you just need to be aware that there are people doing it and where they are and how you can get behind them. And we can turn the ship around or slam it straight into reverse if we get enough people listening to the information. That's all.
Mm. Yeah, just watched, talking about ships, saw a very interesting documentary on the Titanic and how it wasn't actually the Titanic that hit the iceberg.
Yeah, it was the Olympic. You want the background on that? That's my hometown, by the way. I used to row sculls in that harbor, right. where it was built. My grandfather saw the Olympic launched. Sorry, what do they call it? Titanic, Olympic, Titanic? Doesn't matter. Yeah, it was an insurance claim. The Olympic was renamed the Titanic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was also, there was a book launched, I think it was 2 years earlier, I might be wrong, it might have been less. No, 2 years earlier, called the Titanica. And it was all about how the these rich families all went onto this boat. And again, they need to tell you what before they actually do it. And it was all about a story about this grand ship that not even God could sink her, and all the grandiose fittings were all on this ship. And it's basically a carbon copy of what happened to the Olympic, named the Titanic. But actually, where did all the money come from to build that boat? Well, it was what was actually going on during, or what I found out in my research, was that like World War World War One, World War Two, all of these different things, all the false flag operations, let's say, and leave it at that. The point is, all these things have been happening for a reason, and the people that have been pushing for these things to happen have been the same ones that have funded it in the first place. And it was that whole thing was to try and destabilize the top wealthiest people in America, so that an alternative group of people could get in and take over America. And it doesn't take too much guessing when you realise that the same people are behind all of the movies, and the same people are behind a lot of the stuff that's actually been going on to run Congress into the ground and all the rest of it. Steering America from the inside, shall we say. Zion, ring any bells?
all the usual suspects.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the irony is every story is the same one if you learn how to read it. The Titanic is the same story as The Wizard of Oz, is the same story as Perseus, is the same story of Joseph and Technicolor Dreamcoat. These are some of the layers I'm going to peel off in the second hour with you, Scott. We're going to have some fun. Going to get you we're going to shift from cosmic blueprints to way outside the box. I'm going to rename the show now. We're going to have some fun. Promise.
Cool.
Yeah, well, none of this that we're talking about actually matters, but it's kind of fun anyway. We'll call it drama for now, and it's quite a magical place we live in when you see it.
Yeah. So, what's your feel on the folk around the world in terms of their receptiveness to, I suppose, the subject at hand? I'm certainly finding that it's growing, and
totally. Yeah, it's accelerating and getting bigger and bigger. It's like a snowball going down a hill. Once it's built up that momentum and there's still a hill there, it's going to carry on speeding up and speeding up and speeding up, which is wonderful. This is what the human race needs to get our head out our arse, basically. On all these different things. And there's so many people coming forward, whistleblowers coming forward, technologies coming forward. I mean, crikey, I could go on for ages listing people and what they're doing and what they're up to, and oh, wow, it's awesome. But we are pushing the envelope, we're pushing the boundaries, and I mean all of them. It's not just medicine, or not just law, it's not just reality, it's all of them, everyone you can think of, science as well, quantum physics, celestial mechanics, you name it, it's all happening. It's a big old trip.
One interesting story I heard not so long ago was a gentleman, I think from Queensland, who mentioned about this idea of acting as the trustee for these so-called governments. And he said basically to them, I'll be your trustee, but my annual fee is something like $850,000. Would you like me to continue? And of course they didn't want to pay his trustee fees, and his court case and all the rest of it was just waived. But it was a very simplistic way of highlighting the role that they want you to play without any sort of compensation. You get all the risk and the liability and the responsibility, and be their little trustee. And the minute he recognised that and put his hand up and said, well, that'll cost you, here's my fee, they all turned around and ran in the opposite direction.
Well, I mean, I'm not being funny or anything, but that'd be not even pennies compared to what these people that are supposedly running government are actually taking out of it. They're, multi-millionaires. Look at presidents, look at secretary generals, and all the rest of the people doing it. So, you know what I mean? If somebody was going to genuinely be doing it, that'd be nothing. You think we couldn't afford that out of a couple of quid taxes?
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, with all the instruments that are going on behind the scenes and the bond trading and you name it, hypothecation left, right and centre, it's no surprise.
The crap game is on fire.
that game is over. Period. And I got to tell you, Scott, there's not going to be too many shows that I'm going to be doing very shortly, based on what I know. So again, I'm going to say to people, when I go off the air, something shifted. God, I hate being cryptic, because I think you know where I'm going, Tony. Like, until people realize that everyone, until something is done, is walking around in pure fraud, that the whole system is based on it, and it is the one cotter pin that keeps this wheel on, and we found it, and we've pulled it, and I will go as far to say that shortly after we pulled it, there was a couple of people I was working with, and we uncovered something in a very ethereal aspect. I don't even know what to call it, but a certain organization's IDs stopped working the next day. How's that for fun?
Very interesting.
Well, we're all walking around as postal workers. We got a piece of paper stuck to our ass. It's not that we're the cargo. We're carrying the cargo. We're all postal workers, basically.
Yep.
And if we get this piece of paper off our ass, where we can actually, use it lawfully based on a certain action that has to be done, which we're doing right now. And this whole thing is going to come down in the twinkling of an eye, literally. If we headed for a beautiful, beautiful awakening of a level that everyone is going to understand why they're here to witness this, because it's going to be something. And that beach party in Australia, that's not going to be too far off. It will not be too far off, and it'll be an absolutely private party, I assure you. And I know who's going to be on my invite list, and we'll leave it at that. So,
well, I'd like to bring along a nice shiny blue Corvette if I could.
Oh, absolutely. We'll make sure that's picked up long before that. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. So what is the deal with that anyway? Is it still in storage, or what's going on there?
Yeah. It's still being looked after by customs. I believe they're doing quite a good job. I sent them another invoice just recently.
Oh, you don't have to do that anymore. Don't stop wasting your time, because we're going to chat one-on-one. After the show, kind of thing. May not be today, might be tomorrow, whatever. But we're going to talk, and going to fill you in a couple things that might be helpful to maybe set a fire under their asses.
Look forward to it.
Hey, when I get there, I want to ride in that car. Okay.
No dramas.
All right, I love it.
Anyway, you have to get used to the right-hand drive bit.
Oh,
and
I'm used to it. Yeah. One thing about driving right-hand drive, though, is I was back in 2008. Actually, both cars I had were sticks, and you got to be careful, because you don't want to end up rolling the window down to change gears.
Exactly, or open the door.
Exactly. No, I actually prefer driving that side of the road. It's way more logical. It really is.
It's funny. I was actually had the car at a Corvette show in Bloomington in Illinois, and a lot of the folk were coming around looking at the car, and of course it was right-hand drive, and you get these folk saying, steering wheel's on the wrong side of the car, and I'm having a bit of a sense of humour. I said, no, it's on the right side of the car. And I knew where you're going there, and
that's too funny.
But interesting, you mentioned postal workers, because I think, what is it, the only cars in the States that are right-hand drive are the postal delivery vans.
Yes, they are. Look at all these little coincidences. And did you know, what's the name of the highest court in the world?
Most would say the World Court.
Well, actually, there's one bigger than that. It kind of involves the word universal.
Yes. Yeah, Universal Postal Union.
Yeah. You see the ion, right? post as in, to mail something or to put a big post in the ground, or as in post-mortem after. The layers are just ripping off left, right, and center. But you have the Universal Postal Union. If it was just for the Earth, it would, in a common sense, it would be the Global Postal Union, don't you think?
Yep.
So that's how they have us, as above, so below, with the Universal Postal Union. And that might be a little hint as to the organization that IDs don't work anymore, because they're still under the UPU. And what we found was slightly higher. Just enough. Just enough to go, gotcha.
Very nice.
Yeah, we're having fun now. I'm having a hoot. I have no idea. Like I said, a week ago I was unconscious.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's quite something, and I know there's a lot of people out there listening that have a real good inkling as to what I'm referring to. And here's the thing about this information, is I'm going to be very cryptic, and I will never give the answer out over the air. I will point at it. I will allude to it. And here's something else. I've had a couple of people email me with regards to some of the stuff that I've been talking about. In the case of putting an X through the stamp and writing void through it, don't give up on the first try. While it's still in the mail, it's still in the mail, right? So eventually it's going to get into the right hands. And the typical charm of the system is they ask your name how many times? Oh, right, 3 times. If you want to get anywhere to get an answer, you have to ask it how many times? Oh, right, 3 times. So third time seems to be the charm on everything. And, Dorothy had to click her heels how many times before the magic happened? Right, 3 times, okay? And we are in Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium to a degree that you cannot imagine. You will shortly, but it is absolutely stunning. And when things really start to click for people and they start to piece this all together and they look at it, they go, oh my God, I've been starring in Coronation Street. Seriously, it is that simplistic. Francis Bacon, a.k.a. William Shakespeare, said all the world's a stage. Well, I got to tell you guys, they weren't kidding. They were not kidding. How are you enjoying your role? You having fun? I'm having a hoot now. Absolute hoot. But yeah, you're right. We're all postal workers, and it's interesting that you mentioned the word customs. And I'll explain that a bit further one-on-one with you as to how important that little word is. As a matter of something being stuck in customs. Speaking of your car it's just a coincidence that your car is stuck in customs, because there's something that is required to get it out of customs. Same thing applies to every walking soul on this earth. I told you we have the cotter pin. Fun. We found the treasure chest. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. We're going to have some fun. So I'm shutting up now.
Well,
I was going to say, you sound a lot more relaxed than when we last spoke, Kate. You look like you're...
oh, you have no idea.
This one?
Yeah, there's only one thing that really stresses me out now, and it's drama. When people hand me drama, I just can't handle it. It's like, please, just don't do that. Not anymore. I'm having too much fun. Don't piss me off. It's like I got my crayons and I got my sheet of paper and I'm drawing really pretty pictures now, and quit putting your foot on it. So it's all good. It's you see the thing that frustrates me the most is the fact that I want to help so much, and when I'm limited in my ability to do that, I get angry at myself, and it manifests out. Because it's like I want to do so much, and when I don't have things that I need when I need them, to help someone that's what spins me out. That's my personal tornado, and I have to come to terms with that too. So it's all good. I'm getting there, but yes, I'm certainly a lot more relaxed and having this shit pile more fun. Oh yeah, we're gonna talk, and you're gonna laugh, and you're gonna laugh some more.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey, Tony, the answer was down under. I told you it was in Oz.
Right. Okay. Well, we had to go through that looking glass called Venice to get there, by the sounds of things.
Yeah. The Aoshima. Oh, that's right, the Blue Island. Peter Gabriel said it really good in Sledgehammer. You can have an airplane flying or a Corvette driving if you bring your blue sky back. Yeah, you might want to look up Blue Sky. That's just a little hint. Oh, I was going to say there are people that are taking any of my information and thinking they can use it in a court. Give your, I got to say it because this is just the way I need to say it, give your fucking head a shake. Because if you haven't heard me before telling people about going to court, that's not what I do. I'm about dissolving courts. Yeah. Not about showing you how to go in and be a belligerent little shithead. I deal with it outside of the system. Because when you're in there, that's when you have the problem. And you're a belligerent, occupying, militant combatant, not a civilian. I'm a civilian. And I'm going to show people how to do that if they're willing. Other than that, I can't help you. You want to take the stuff that I'm offering into a courtroom? I promise you one thing. This is the only thing I will promise you. You will get your ass handed to you, because if you think that you can use it in a court, means you haven't got the foggiest of what it is I'm talking about. And you need to sit back, shut your adult ego down. Bill Hicks, I love this. Turn off the mental dialogue, okay? You're wrong. Get over it. Shut up. Because I was there once. And I'm saying that to myself. You know, I got there, you know, so if people want to go to peace, I'll show you how to do that.
Yeah. That first step that someone takes into the court just invalidates 99.9 or 100% of what they've just tried to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what you're doing, Scott, is you're handling it exactly the way it needs to be handled. Asking questions. You know, if you've ever seen the cartoon Gravity Falls, hint, hint, hint. If you've ever seen the cartoon Gravity Falls, you'll see that question mark all over the place. Gee, I wonder why they have the question mark there. And then, of course, I watched a video. I wrote an essay. I might share it. It's not very long. It's only part one. It's called The Wizards of Oz, in a webinar last night. And basically it was a girl doing, you know, spewing about Illuminati symbols this and Masonic symbols that. And I bet you that not one member of her family is in the Masonic. I bet that she's never set foot in a Masonic lodge. I bet she's never actually lived any word that she was saying. And this is one of the things that people do. They love to walk around like, do you remember the movie Good Will Hunting?
Yep.
Okay, do you remember the scene where Will and his buddies decide to go into the Yale bar in Boston? You know, the Saudi boys head over to the Yale, you know, posh club. And then the one guy that was, you know, Mr. Slick Shit comes over and he starts spewing, you know, Yeats and all the rest of it. And of course, Will, being the uber brain that he is, knew exactly what he was quoting from and was able to quote him back and told him about how unoriginal his ideas were. And that's exactly what people are. You got to stop regurgitating someone else's canvas. That ain't yours.
Yeah.
You know.
I've got to shoot, Kate, because I've got this other one coming in. But thanks for listening, guys, and I'll see you next week. All good.
Yep.
Thanks,
absolutely.
Tony.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Tony.
Bye.
All right. Have a fun time on the show.
In a bit.
Okay. Have you? So anyway, just you and me now, Scotty. So let's have a bit of fun. You ready?
Yep, go for it. No, I like that Good Will Hunting thing. It's further reinforcement of knowing your own material before you use it.
Well, again, it's about, you know, if you're going to do research, and you know this because you've done a ton of research, and I know that based on your documentary and having talked with you a couple of times now. And what you're doing is you're taking what you know but you're not regurgitating someone else's concept of it. You've been creative with it, and you've come at it from a completely different perspective, and very creatively, I might add.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, thank you. I love watching artists in motion. It's beautiful. And what you've done is, you know, you've taken their regurgitated words, revamped them, threw them back in their face, and you've stunned them. You know, and here are the people that are able to, you know, quote themselves, but not actually know what it is they're saying.
Yeah.
So, you know, and we've all been guilty of it, me included. Everybody's guilty of it. Of, you know, trying to sound smarter and you know somehow, you know, look at me, right? And
look at my
look at my badge. That is perfect. You know, and in our own elevated level of self-importance, we've missed the point completely, because what we've been doing is regurgitating the words from someone else's painting that we have taken on as our own canvas. So,
yes.
That's why I told people, take your canvas that you had at birth. It was crystal pure white. That your, mom and dad and any siblings, and of course, as you grow up, the schools, everyone has taken a piece of shit and thrown it on there. So they've left very little room for you to, be creative. And that's what people have to do. They have to decide that is what everybody else is saying and has rammed into your head, is it more important than your thoughts? I want to hear what your thoughts are. And that's where I come back to you again, Scott, is I love your thoughts. They're very original. They're very creative. And they're filled with a whole lot of fun because you went at it with a gleeful heart.
Yeah.
There's no belligerence in anything you've done. I love it.
No, well, that was what I was seeing was the key to this. It was as if there is no battle here. I'm detached from the outcome, and I'm exploring and knowing who I am. And that's when the focus switched to who are you guys, and that just shaped up as the tool that was such a nugget to share with other folk for a twofold purpose. One was to sort of get some support behind me and help get the car out, and the second one was to assist folk with their challenges, because the amount of crap that we've all been imposed upon is just phenomenal, and the number of emails that I've had of people who've written in and have just been run over by the truck in various shape and form, and it's just amazing and mind-boggling the persecution that we've gone through, and that's probably still only scratching the surface in the bigger picture overall. It's a big mess.
There's a lot of irony in that statement that you just said as well. And when people start realizing that persecution that they're experiencing, and I've experienced it to a pretty good level, that is a mirror image of what needs to be fixed within. And those are the tests that we have decided to put ourselves through. And the test is really this: can you dare? Can you dare to find unconditional love? Can you dare to look your enemy in the face and say, I love you?
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. And that is the love that conquers all. And when people get there, you'll see the fourth dimension. Promise. You'll see Oz for what it really is. So, go ahead. I
was going to say, as a stepping stone to get to that point, I can probably draw a parallel with one of the processes that I've been working with, is that aspect of setting up those terms and conditions with a so-called government to the point where you invoice them. And whilst that's still a relatively elementary step, and in a parallel sense, the internal shift that needed to take place to be able to do that was, instead of saying to, say, your policeman or your counsellor or your minister or whoever's trying to impose something upon you, instead of saying, you can't do that, with terms and conditions in place, it was like, well, yeah, you can do that in exchange for X ounces of silver. You can do that for Y ounces of silver. And the shift that occurred within you was, oh, it's okay for you to do that because it doesn't hurt me, it's not harming me, and here's my agreement to allow that to happen. And the tool, I suppose, in that was that shift from the, you can't do this and the fear, to the, oh, okay, that's no problem. And that little shift there, whilst it came from working in a commercial sort of sense with terms and conditions and invoices, when you extrapolate that out onto a bigger scale and get to that unconditional love, to be able to say, yeah, I love you, and regardless of who you're dealing with, is probably the bigger message to take from that.
Exactly. And when we're dealing with the mirrors of ourself, i.e. the system, we start to discover the things within ourselves that needs to be corrected. This is where the self-correcting of your own direction, of what your own helm is all about, comes into play. And if I may, I would like to share a tribute to Oz. Seeing as you're there, I'd like to share the Wizards of Oz Part 1, which I will be finishing over the next day or so. It's going to be a fairly long one, but what I'm trying to outline in this is to get people to see the tornadoes that they're creating for themselves, and that the only war that anyone has is within. And the process that you're going through is a wonderful demonstration of taking that mirror and playing with it. You're starting to reflect it back. And you're, again, as I've said before, if people really want to go out and protest, whatever. But if you really want to go out and protest, listen, the guys that are in their riot gear with their helmets and their shields and all the rest of their little toys of death and destruction, tasers, guns, and batons and what have you, what you really need to do is go out and buy yourself a nice big reflecting, unbreakable mirror, okay? And you need to walk up quietly in absolute silence and form a line and hold the mirror up to them and let them see how stupid they look.
Yeah.
Look at the automaton that you are. You can't tell who any of you are. So they get to see themselves in their own reflection. And you see, one of the things that I found when you offer that which is being tossed to you back, the saying goes, placing the hot coals back on your enemy's head is the gift that you do not wish to have. And I mean that in peace, right? It gives them time to reflect. How we like to reflect within ourselves. So I like to take things very literal and very ethereal at the same time. So here's the Wizards of Oz. Wizards, plural. You're all wizards, people. I need you to know that. You're all Merlin. The Wizards of Oz, Part 1. This is how the story goes. Once upon a time, or so the story begins, truth, as one will see it or not, is far stranger than fiction, such as the effect of being too long in the twister that wrenched us from our home and landed us here in Oz. All the while, we have been stuck in one tornado after another during the entireties of our lives, and based on our opinions on the unoriginal ideas of others who have made a dog's dinner of our pure white canvases, with the constant spinning in the clouds, we only get a glimpse here and there of any truth that might have made it possible to get to the Emerald City sooner and with less wear and tear. While I was watching a video of someone exposing this Masonic symbol or that Illuminati spell, I watched her miss the point entirely based on her somehow knowing what all of it really meant. Unfortunately for her, she never stopped to actually question herself as to where she got her information. Granted, she was at least searching for something, somewhere. She never once asked herself why the symbols were there. You see, she was too busy trying to impress herself and her viewers about her apparent wealth of knowledge surrounding these things to satiate the grown-up ego. Erstwhile, never has she lived a single syllable of her utterances. On and on I watched the tornado spin, hearing unoriginal spouting of diatribe, based on something she read somewhere, not once stopping to scratch her own head and possibly ask why. This is the all-too-common mindset of a well-trained mind, one trained to parrot something from someone else's work, not having lived a single moment of what it was they were declaring as truth. Sad, truly sad. We all have our Yale student moments in the bars of our life dealing with our mirror of goodwill hunting, where we get caught, just as our Yale student friend did, regurgitating someone else's quotes in the seemingly endless twister of trying to look smart. When Dorothy landed in Oz, all she had was her wits, a busted house, a dead witch from the east, a really cool new pair of shoes, and her little dog Toto. Not much to start with to begin a quest of the magnitude even she was unaware of. Such is our world of Oz. Alas, with a little spurring on by some little people and a nice witch's blessing, off she went on her yellow brick road to find her own truth. Just her and Toto, and a basket of food that was enough to last her for a day or so. All along the way of this road, like Dorothy's, we encounter things and people that will allow us to grow, or will try to encumber us to stop us from getting to our own emerald cities. As we go along here, I want you, the reader or listener, to keep in mind that Dorothy, also known as you, always had the means to get home, all the time, at your beck and call. The good witch Glenda reminds us at the end of the story. The important lesson from this part of the story is simply this. Don't judge a book by someone else's description of the cover. Our white canvases as children were badly smeared, and it takes a serious amount of cleaning to get them where we have room to be the child within and get original with our newly bared canvas. What is ironic about that video I was watching is that the whole time I was thinking that a few kids, likely less than 15 years old, cracked the codes of the show she was trying to expose, where I was given the gift to actually encode the decoded segments. Who says you can't learn from a child? You can if you shut up long enough to listen. More to follow in part 2.
Nice.
Gets the point across. No?
Yeah. There's certainly truth in that. There's plenty to be learnt from a child.
Well, that's where I'm getting all my information. I'm loving it. You know, when you get the eyes of a child again, you know, we are playing a literal game of snakes and ladders. More literal than you can imagine. And how many times have you climbed the ladder and got here and climbed up and you know, only to find, you know, that the second from the end before you end the game, there's a snake that takes you back down to the second square again.
Yeah.
And we all end up on that snake. That's what's been going on.
Yeah.
You know, we get so close, and then we hit the snake and whoop, down and play it again. You know.
That's back to your prison planet again, isn't it?
Yeah. So what we found is a neat little bridge that goes right over top of that snake. Nice. We built another ladder.
Yeah, and with handrails.
With handrails, it's got a beautiful, you know, buckle-in system. There's no way that you can fall out, and it's really comfy. We've done it up with feather bed, you know, fluffies, and
very nice.
Yeah, well, you know, people until they get past their fear, and this is exactly what you started off with, is eliminating and alleviating that fear, and that's the only thing that has us trapped here, fear.
Yeah.
You know, we're all wolves in sheep's clothing. That's why we're called sheeple. Right? They want to keep everyone convinced that that's all they are. But look at the courts. They tell you right up front. What is the wig made of? It's made of lamb's wool. They are wolves in sheep's clothing, and they're trying to show you your reflection. No, they're there to wake you up in as much as we're there to wake them up. And there are key players in this game. There are those that are, I've called them the watchers, and we have them from both sides, referees. Let's call them ascended beings, that are making sure that the game plays out accordingly. And the only time you get beyond the game is when you actually earn it. And the only way you can earn it is to learn it. And that's all I've been doing, trying to learn.
Yeah.
You know. So, yeah, we're definitely in, we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto, but we're going back. We're going home.
Very good.
Oh, do you remember at the end of the movie, when Dorothy was in the gondola of the balloon? Of course, if you watch,
very long time since I've watched that movie. It probably deserves a revisit.
Oh yeah, when I get this essay done, you're going to want to watch it with brand new eyes. Because at the very end of the movie, there's the Tin Man. You see him because everyone's looking at Dorothy and the Wizard, right? But if you look at the Tin Man, you can see him undoing the rope. You see, so the Tin Man, the heart, or the fresh being with the new heart, is the one that finally unravels the knot that lets you, you know, up and away to go back to Kansas in the same balloon that brought the Wizard to Oz in the first place.
Yeah.
So our answer it has always been that which got us trapped is that which will set us free. And when we talk about the grand scheme of the game, what is the only thing that has us trapped completely? There's only one thing that everything is based on here. It's known as a star contract or a Shirat covenant. It's called a birth bond. These are ancient. These go back a long way. That's why they've been so powerful, and that's why they've been holding us so hard. And when you start to unravel that mystery and to see it in the now, you got to be in the now to see this. You know, if you get caught up in a tornado, that's when I was saying about those brief moments of truth, that you can stick your head out of the tornado long enough to have a look, as a child would, you know. Ask a child anytime they're in a car. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? They're bored out of their noggin. So what we need to do is stick our head out of the tornado. You know, get out of the drama of I've got this bill and I've got to make this much and I've got to do this and I've got to go here and it's this holiday and it's this and that. They have us spinning in every direction. It's an amusement ride.
Yeah.
You know, it's got thrills, and I love Bill Hicks again. He's got thrills and chills and ups and downs, and you know, some people have gotten so embedded in the game that they think it's real. You know, look at my furrows of worry. Look at my big piles of money. Look at my big house. You know.
Yeah.
For those that are listening, you might want to check out the YouTube of the late great Bill Hicks. It's just a ride. And try to get the lengthened one. I think it's about 3.5 minutes, and it is pure and utter truth. Bill saw the illusion. He was one of the few that did. You know?
It's like a friend of mine was saying the other day, you either get people who want to be really good at stuff, or they're good at being sad, which is good at the opposite end of the spectrum, but they're still trying to be better than everyone else, as in, like, my problems are bigger than yours, and they dwell in the world of problems.
Well, a victory is still a victory, is it not?
Yeah.
You see, and that's where we get caught. We get caught in that victory of, well, you know, I have more money than you, and, well, I am sicker than you, and hypochondriac. I have, you know, I have bigger money problems than you, and bitch, and rant.
Yep.
and here's little old me standing back now going, I don't care. I want to play.
No.
You know, wouldn't it be a lot better if we just kind of followed our heart and did what we're supposed to be doing? Because I'll tell you, it'd be a happy day when I finally go off the air in terms of doing talk shows and get back on the air doing what I do best, music. That's where my heart lies. So I just took a little 3-4 year break. It's all good.
Yeah, follow the passion.
Oh yeah, follow your heart. Great song by Triumph.
Yeah.
You know, it's. But I'm going to go back to what you've been doing with that documentary. I love it. What the fuck? That's so. That's kind of. How do you pronounce it?
Yeah, same way.
Yeah,
and
that's what I thought.
Someone actually put a great comment on Facebook. They said, if you don't get a response from one of these so-called government departments, have you been fucked?
Frequently unanswered questioned.
Yeah.
It's perfect. By the way, for those that don't know the video, Scott, give people the details of where they can watch this masterpiece of parody on the government. It's beautiful.
It's you can find it at www.truth-now.net, and there's a trailer on the homepage that'll take you through to the case study on importing my Corvette from the States to Australia. So you got the 52-minute documentary in there, but failing that, just throw into Google what the FUQ with a question mark, and it'll occupy about the first 10 pages or so of Google. So it's managed to get quite a bit of traction, which is pretty good.
Oh, I was going to say I got a little bit more than traction. I think it had the same get up and go as the Corvette you're going to seem to be traveling around in. But, you know, it's really nice of them to take care of it, you know, in the customs there, and I'm sure they're admiring it. That's the only reason they're holding it, because they love looking at it. That's.
I'm sure. I think it's a good conversation piece to be able to have their coffee round and have a chat. But to be fair, the guys that are looking after it are, I suppose, not the actual customs department. So they've been quite interested in the saga that's going on from a kind of a third-party perspective, and it was quite interesting.
On the sidelines.
Sorry?
Yeah, they're on the sidelines looking in. So yeah, it would be really interesting to see what their perspective on it is. Yeah,
exactly. So they've kind of been, just keep us up to date. Let us know what's happening, and it's sitting in the corner there. It's looking a little sad, but won't take long to put it back into action.
Yeah, we got a couple of questions, a couple of unanswered questions that, kind of really need to be answered. Do you want a little bit of history, background on what it is I'm speaking of?
Yeah, if you could give me a...
Yeah, well, this is for you and all the good listeners, for all the smart ones that are out there actually listening and, getting a few things handed to them. I just got to pull it up here. Santa Claus is coming to town. There it is. The Santa Claus Trail. Literally. Oh, man. when I share this stuff with you, but you're just going to go, oh my God. Anyway, here we go. Let's talk about a little bit of history here, people, because, well, now that it's outside the box, because it's no longer Cosmic Blueprints, because Tony's gone, well, we'll just commandeer the helm, eh, Scott? Is that good?
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Here we go. Anyway, here, you can look this up if you've got a Black's Law 9th edition. It's probably in all of them, but I prefer to use the Black's Law 9th Magic Book. It's got it's got more in it than you could ever imagine. Anyway, Black's Law, star, spelled S-T-A-R-R, 2 R's. Historically, a Jewish contract, especially for release of an obligation, that Richard I declared invalid unless it was placed in a lawful repository, the largest being in the King's Exchequer at Westminster. By the way, there are 2 others. We found them.
Right.
It goes on to say this. It is well known that before the banishment of the Jews under Edward I, their contracts and obligations were denominated in our ancient records, stara or stars, from a corruption of the Hebrew word shatar, which is a covenant. Now these stars or covenants, by ordinance of Richard I, were commanded to be enrolled and deposited into chests under 3 keys in certain places. One, and the most considerable, is the King's Exchequer at Westminster. The room at the Exchequer was probably called the Star Chamber. And when the Jews were expelled from the kingdom, was applied to the use of the King's Council when sitting in their judicial capacity, i.e., or also known as like the Star Chamber, when judges get together to discuss a case or whatever. Now, there's another thing that people should probably want to look up. I'll read it for them, but there's a thing called clausula rebus sextantibus. And I'm not going to connect the dots for anyone on the air. I'll never do that. Because until you actually understand from your own experience, from your own earning it, by learning it, it won't matter. I'm not going to toss people fish. They're going to learn how to fish themselves. But I'm going to show you how to fish. Clausula rebus sextantibus, which means, in public international law, clausula rebus sextantibus, which is Latin for things thus standing, is the legal doctrine allowing for treaties to become inapplicable because of a fundamental change of circumstances. It is essentially an escape clause that makes an exception of the general rule of pacta sunt servanda, which means promises must be kept. And because the doctrine poses such a risk to the security of treaties, as its scope is relatively unconfined, it requires strict regulations as to the conditions in which it may be invoked. That almost sounds magical, like to invoke a spell. Must be something to that. So there's more to it in a background, but I'll just let people know this. Although it is clear that a fundamental change of circumstances might justify terminating or modifying a treaty, unilateral denunciation of a treaty is prohibited. A party does not have the right to denounce a treaty unilaterally, which means if you catch on to something and you make it known, the treaty is still in effect. However, it doesn't apply to you anymore.
Nice.
Now, a treaty is another word for covenant.
Yep.
Time to connect the dots. Here's another neat little tidbit of information that might, start getting some wheels turning. When you're driving down the road, and I don't care, I'll say whatever I want. Right now, all the Freemen and Sovereignty going, hey, just drive it, I'm traveling. Shut up. Turn off the mental dialogue, dolt. Been there, done that, got the T-shirt, gave it back, took a tank top instead because it fits better, okay? But when you're traveling, driving, moving, doing whatever in your car down the highway, if you've got a solid line on the road and there's a car in front of you that's going slower than you would like it to, what can you not do if there's a solid line?
You don't want to be overtaking.
Well, you can't, right? That's the rule. And it's a good rule because there's only certain parts of the highway that you can pass, and that part of the highway is generally denoted by a broken line.
Yep.
So you might want to think possibly that a dotted line means that you can pass, and a solid line means that you cannot. So if you might look at some documents and maybe find a dotted line here and there. You might be interested to understand what that means. A dotted line kind of means that you pass through to private. And if it's solid, you can't, because that's corporate, fictional. So there's certain documents or covenants that everyone has in their possession that, you know, might have that on it. There's a couple of documents you might want to compare.
Yes.
And that is the long and short of it.
Mm.
And for the astute, they knew exactly what I just said.
Yeah.
And for the astute, well, you got some homework to do.
Yep.
And that is the long and short of it.
Nice.
Cool, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, that's...
I always allow for these quiet moments.
So that passage that you read out earlier on about the treaties, where did that one derive from?
Oh, that's you can look it up. Look it up. Clausula rebus sextantibus. I believe this. I always reverse the sic and the rebus. Rebus sextantibus. Yeah. So, and if you look at that, if for any people out there that like doing lexicograms, you might want to take clausula rebus sextantibus and see what kind of neat things you can make with that. Almost looks like you can see Santa Claus. Oh, and by the way, did you know that Saint Stanislaus was a bishop, and that he was noted for having raised the dead after 3 years to confirm that he in fact owned land that he had bought from this dead entity in a court, because his children had challenged it, and the king at the time had said, well, we took the land away from the bishop, and the bishop was touted to have went over and actually dug the guy up, brought him back to life, and brought him into a court.
Right.
In his favor. So Saint Stan, Isla, was able to raise the dead. Didn't matter how long they were dead. The guy was in the ground for 3 years, apparently. Might be a bit of a clue.
Yeah. Talks somewhat about, what was it, Santos was talking about raising the dead.
Mm-hmm.
More in the metaphorical sense rather than the physical.
Yeah, and again, all the answers are within you if you're willing to look. The only thing you're going to find out in this beautiful illusion that we call Earth, are the clues. Can you follow your nose? Knows. Can you follow your nose?
Mm.
And that's what you have to do. And I got to tell you, one of the greatest gifts that was given to me was the ability to see words to the level I can see them now. And I do my best to share that, to try to give people, at least enough of an eye-opening look at words where they can start looking at other words themselves and not taking things so literally. Oh, Tony had mentioned a word earlier about liberty.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's change the sound of it around a little bit. Liberty. Because if you take the L-I-B-E-R, it can be liber. It would actually be more sensible to say liber. What do we know about LIBOR? Is that something to do with banks or anything?
You could say there was a certain scandal going on over there.
Yeah, LIBOR. Yeah, the LIBOR laws, right? The international. This all connects. There is something about connecting it all, and I found it. It's beautiful. So LIBOR is basically, they're selling, right? Mm-hmm. So selling, and T, the sound, note, love, the note of love, do, re, mi, fa, sol, T. And C, of course, middle C is, middle C. You got to find the center. Everything connects beautifully. The letters, the words, the sounds, everything. It's stunning when you see it. And so liberty could be liberty, selling of love. Are you selling your love, or are you giving it? Really, do you really want to have liberty? Nah, not me. My love is free.
Yeah.
Yeah. It goes pretty deep, but once you get through all the hogwash and the crap and all the rest of it, it is so fundamentally clear. It is mind-boggling, and like I said, it won't be too long before I'm going to be silent, and I'm going to be loving it because, well, let's just say when I do get silent, I found the balloon, and I'm on my way out of Oz.
Undone the knot and off you go.
Yeah, so, and the good news is, at least these shows are all recorded, so people can go back. Oh, Kate's not on the air anymore. Yeah, you might want to go back and listen to a few shows. I've given it all away. I've given it all away. If people can see it.
Yep. Yeah, it's joining those dots.
Yeah, and that's something I will not do because that's a trespass on free will choice. I will not create a war between the private and the public sectors. I'm going civilian, baby. I'm done with the military.
Yeah.
If you're in court, you're a combatant. That's it. And, you know, here's the best advice I can give anyone if they think they want to go in and fight a ticket or whatever. Listen, you got tested, you failed, suck it up, pay the fine, and then go figure out why you don't have to do it anymore. And until you find peace within, you're going to keep getting pulled over, and these dogs are going to keep biting your ass. The good news is that the awakening is happening in such a fashion that those days are numbered, and there's not many of them left.
Yeah, the learning curve is a lot steeper and faster.
And here's the joy of this beautiful place called Oz, Earth, is that when something is discovered by one individual, this is what I want people to finally grasp, the power of themselves. If this is the one lesson I can give to people, the one that I've learned, is that what you do matters throughout infinity and the universe. You, the individual listening right now, have the ability, I know because you're me, have the ability to change the entire world with one act, with one thought. The only thing you have to decide is, are you afraid of it? And can you take responsibility for bringing love into your life? That's it. It's not rocket science. I mean, it could be if you want it to be. I mean, look at the mess around us. That's rocket science to me. I'm done.
The simplicity of it is it going to be a shock for a lot? You think,
well, that's the magic.
Yeah.
That's the magic. So, if you could, I'd love if you can give out some contact information for getting to the video, where they can find it, and maybe if your Facebook information and stuff like that for people that are interested in being that soldier turning around to go, hey, well, I think I can, and I know I can. That's the important lesson that we have to give out.
Cool.
So, shoot away.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got a Facebook page up, which I think is FUQAG, so short for Frequently Unanswered Questions of the Australian Government. So that's FUQAG, tacked onto the tail end of Facebook's URL. And then the website is truth-now.net. And there's a whole heap of diagrams that I've put together for validating government in Australia, and I'm sure the parallels can be drawn to other countries. I've put a fair bit of work up on just basic process of writing notices and that sort of thing. So that's truth-now.net, and Google the YouTube video if you can't find any of those. Just type in what the FUQ, and you should run across that pretty quickly. So that's the three places it's sitting at the moment, and people have been kind enough to repost that. It was actually a website, Wake Up World, who wrote a very interesting article following up on the same subject, with the corporations masquerading as government. So it's popped up in all sorts of places all around the world.
No, that's awesome, because really all people need for that little bit of empowerment, it doesn't take much, is as soon as they start to see things that others are doing, and again, it's leading by example. It's not leading by, like the Yale boy regurgitation. When you lead by example, with the ego, the adult ego especially, you want to get back to the child aspect, but the adult ego requires proof, and I love the word prove. People say, well, you got to prove that truth to me. And I said, duh, why would I need to for truth you? Prove is pro verily, right? Which means for truth. So when something is truth, it is self-evident. You don't need to be proven, and only the ego that is doing its inner dialogue. That's the inner dialogue that Bill Hicks loves to berate so often, and he did it in such a wonderful fashion. So it's that little bit of empowerment, Scott, and that's one of the joys of that video. And when you come on the air, people can get the sense of calm, they can get the sense of peace, and that you're not going about it belligerently, and you're actually having a little bit of fun with it, and you're making people inside the system accountable for their own nonsense.
Yeah. I think, as you said, it's that those who are looking for the external validation or seeking that proof haven't got that understanding yet. It's the internal. To me, it's the internal knowing, and that's hopefully what I was trying to convey as well, is to get to that point, and makes things a lot clearer and calmer, and there's no need anymore. It's I know what's going on, and I'm not fearful of it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I was sometimes I try to get my mouse to move and it doesn't to unmute, and that's really what I've been saying for years. Lose the fear, get in gear. And you don't have to do any large steps. I mean, we were talking about boxing the signatures on money. That's changing your paradigm. That's a very beautiful way of saying, this money is bogus. I'm gonna ethereally remove these signatures from this fraudulent check called cash. And I do want to share this when I go off the air. And thank you, Muggsy. I'm glad I'm sort of paying attention to my Skype here. I want to actually bring up the web link. This is for other people too. I will be available on spirituallightworkers.com. I'm doing work there as a consultant, and as much as I'm always at war with this about any sort of funds or whatever, but people can call me direct on that, and that's probably where I'm going to end up divulging direct information to people. So it's basically might cost you $1 or $2, but I will hand you the keys to Oz as a net result. So it'll be a pretty good trade-off, I think. Again, I'll walk the path, and depending on the allowances of what I'll be able to do after that, as per any agreements that I will be entering into with certain individuals, will allow me to do what I need to do. Here's the joy of that too. I won't have any need for any of that paper stuff anyway. Again, this goes into the ether realms that I can't even begin to start sharing with people yet. Some people that I'm working with, the ones that I'm working closest with right now, are exactly where I am, and I really need to get some YouTube videos of me working with one other individual in particular, another Gemini. What are the odds? Just going hell bent for leather on, check this out, check that out, check this out, check that out, and it's constantly watching all the coincidences just fall down, like Neo standing in the hall and seeing all the numbers of the matrix melt before him, and you know how he stops the bullets and kind of has that quizzical look, Yep. That's exactly what I'm speaking of here. But anyway, I would recommend that if you can get to, I'll bring it up, and also I want people to go to Muggsy's site. It's a gorgeous site. It's spirituallightworkers.com is the site where I am a consultant, and Muggsy's site, just a beautiful soul. So grateful to have met her. Her site is msmuggsy.com. I'll spell that because it's mzmuggzzi.com. So that's mzmuggzzi.com. Or for Americans, I'll say it in American. mzmuggzzi.com. Okay? Just to be fair,
Sweet. Yeah, they just came up.
Okay, so anyway, for people that want to talk to me direct, they can do it that way as well. And for those that have means, yeah, whatever. You see, I'm at that point in the game right now where I see what it is, and my universe is going to manifest everything I ever dreamed of. And what I'm telling people to do now is to stop planning and start dreaming. Stop planning and start dreaming. Stop planning and start dreaming. 3 times the charm. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Okay.
That number 3 is coming up over and over again.
Oh, well, it's a very powerful number. That is like the Latin word say. It sounds an awful lot like something you would say, but it's actually spelled S-E. Sounds like S-A-Y, but it's spelled S-E. And the Latin translation of S-E, 2, special editions, second editions, is a beautiful, beautiful, when you can see it, it's stunning. The word say means this. So when you're familiar with the term pro se?
Yes.
Okay, it means to go in, speak for self, but if people take the time to look up what say means, it means himself, herself, itself, which is the trinity of the one, which all of us are. And when we get into the balance of the 2 energies, the masculine and feminine, you create the neutral third. There's your trinity, triangle, and there's your all-seeing eye. And for that young lady that did the fear porn on Gravity Falls, she might want to actually start to do a little bit more homework and understand, never mind what the symbols are and trying to tell everyone what they are and this and that and the other. And maybe ask yourself why they're there to begin with. Maybe if you shut up your internal dialogue long enough, you might ask yourself the question. Maybe they're just trying to tell you to, look here, hey, stupid, look here. The answer's right in front of you, can't you see it? And that's exactly what they're doing. There's no fear there, But, you got these people that are walking around saying, oh, the Masonics evil, the Jesuits, and oh, my God, this and all that, and it's fear porn. Next time you're talking to Tony, ask him how often I use the words fear porn. I use them a lot. Anyone that is, talking about anything with a negative and, someone's going to have this happen and that, fear porn. That's all it is. Yeah. It's drama. Yeah. And if you find, go ahead.
There's been a lot more people actually coming to that recognition as well. And they're actually starting to call it out for what it is, which is saying exactly what you're saying.
Well, they're not buying it anymore, you see. This is a bill of goods that sold us down this river. People just aren't buying it anymore. That's the bottom line. We've had enough, I think. I know I have, and I know you have, and Tony and the rest of us that are doing the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
What do you think? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd agree. There's a certain level of tolerance that we've reached and said, no, sorry, had enough of that. And it's as if we've found the mirror and seen what's in it and went, okie dokie, we can do something about this.
Well, when we do chat in the private, there'll be a whole lot of fair dinkums, huh? Yeah. This is that's one of my favorite terms, and I use that a lot. Believe that or not, fair dinkums.
Right.
And that is a bona fide down under term,
Yeah.
But it works so well, fair dinkums. There's no in it. It's just like, yeah, okay, I gotcha. It's all good, which makes it a beautiful statement. So, what do we got here? We've got about 15 minutes, less than that actually. So maybe some summation thoughts of your happenings since, like I said, the last interview that we did. And that was a great interview, by the way. I had such fun that night, and it just keeps getting better.
Sweet. Yeah, I suppose the summary would be the feedback received from those who've watched it. Overwhelming support for what I've done, which is good. And I suppose the best part about that was actually seeing some of the stories of people writing in saying, "Oh, I've been operating in this I've been afraid to do that, or I tried this and it didn't work, and you've just laid it out so simply that I can actually start asking a few questions in a simple manner of those claiming authority. And it was, in many ways, very positive to see that empowering people to the point where they could take action themselves and step back in and claim their own sovereignty or their own authority. And that was probably the summary of what's occurred in this last period of time. The website visits have been right up there. People have been getting in there and having a look around. And to be honest, I haven't really worried too much about the car being where it is. Customs are still looking after it for me, so that's all good news. And just sharing the news with folk around the world and getting them sharing what I've been doing.
Well, exactly. And where was I going to go there? I was going to bring it back to the Wizard of Oz. You see, what in effect is happening here is when you go back to the beginning of the movie, when Dorothy and Toto were picked up in the house and dropped in Oz, and of course there's the Witch of the East. I don't think she was ever referred to as the Wicked Witch of the East. But then when you look at it from the ethereal aspect, all the truth came out of the East. So what happened was the tornado that we live in, that we're creating for ourselves as our house, we have literally dropped that house on the truth. And the thing that was left was a really groovy pair of shoes, right? The original Frank L. Baum version of it, the shoes were actually silver. They weren't ruby. And silver in the mystical sense means truth, and it's the all-encompassing feminine energy, right? Gold is masculine, silver is feminine. Yeah. There's many layers to it. Look at words that have AU, which is gold. I like the word like authority, which is, for me, as I see it, is the golden hammer of love, right? Thor carried a hammer, right? Yep. The sledgehammer. Where's that hammer thing again? What a coincidence. Almost like it was meant to be. Of course it was. Yep. When you see coincidences, they are everywhere. And once you start seeing that, you start to see the magical aspect of Oz. And when Dorothy, somehow crushed this witch, obviously malevolent witch, where the truth had been corrupted and was harming the munchkins, right? Interesting word that you might want to look up, munchkin in Black's Law at night. Or here's the trick. You can look up a word. If it's not actually there, look at the one that's closest to it or where it should be, and then reference the word above it and below it, as above, so below. And you're going to find yourself seeing a whole lot of historical references that will be relevant to you in that moment. Right. So for now, and I don't care what word it is. There's something. As a child, you always knew what the answers were, and what we've done as our own Hansel and Gretel, there's that twin thing again, we've left breadcrumbs for ourselves. Some of us left I left a few loaves of bread lying around, but I was able to trace it back, and there are no coincidences. And as soon as people can get that into their heads, that there are no coincidences, they have to stop living in their tornadoes, they'll start moving on. Now, in the beginning of the movie, when Dorothy put the shoes on, they could only fit her. They were shoes of truth that fit her only. That was her truth. And the Wicked Witch, when she shows up, tried to take them, and what happened? She had her hands burned. And no one, what that is symbolically saying to you is that once you have truth, once it's yours, no one can ever take it away from you.
No.
The truth is, it's self-evident, it's yours. And you can walk in that truth. There again, the symbology of the shoes. And like Paul Simon, dancing with diamonds on the soles of her feet. And in the sky with diamonds. It's all of this correlates. It all intertwines in the most glorious tapestry and fabric of creation. And once you can get a glimpse of it, and I've been very fortunate. I found myself a couple of days ago just shaking my head going, how did we find this? When you find it, it's and I can deal with a lot of people, as I'm sure you have in the past, that may claim, you'll say something, they go, yeah, I know, but they don't, because they didn't walk in your shoes, Scott.
No.
An idea.
Mm.
They can get a rough idea. It's sort of like someone that bitches and complains because some process that they used in a court. Well, I used the blanks the individual's process, and it didn't work. So no, you didn't. You used your interpretation of it from your experience angle that obviously wasn't experiential enough for you to actually grasp what that individual did, and you probably weren't hanging out with them with every thought they were having and every epiphany that they were going through. So if you want to use somebody else's technique, well, that's fine. You go ahead, but take full responsibility for the fact that unless you walk the walk, you can't talk the talk. I'm sorry. You got to live this game before you can explain it. Don't try to tell me anything of a movie until you've watched it. And you are writing a beautiful script, Scott. You really are. It's thank you so much. You bring such light to so many people, and that's a big responsibility, the size of the torch that you're carrying, and I can see it from here.
Well, I appreciate that, Kate. Thank you.
Well, it's a bright torch, my friend, and I'm really happy to see it. So thank you. But,
cool. Looking forward to shining more light on this subject.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk postal worker in the very near future. Just got to get a couple more things done and a little bit more decoding as to the correct protocol for the end of the yellow brick road. And once we walk it, this world will change in the twinkling of an eye. I promise. It will be beautiful.
Yes.
But anyway, we got 4 minutes here, so I'm I don't know. I think I've pretty much said more than I probably should, but my game here is very simple, people. The information that I'm giving out now is most certainly not advice. If there is any advice I will offer, do your homework. Don't even think of using anything I've said in a courtroom, because you've already lost because you're there. Okay, so I would say stop being such a belligerent little prick, stomping your heels in the cereal aisle, going, "Mommy, I want the Shreddies with a decoder ring," and screaming and yelling, and eventually, maybe Mommy might break down, but I'll tell you, it never happened with me. No, I will give exactly what people need, and I will calmly say, "Mommy, I would prefer the Shreddies with the decoder ring," which is actually the box of Shreddies with a Black's Law 9th edition stuffed inside. It's a hell of a big box of cereal, but I tell you, it's a really big decoder ring, and it's funny. I've been saying that for a while, and what are the odds that I actually found the decoder ring? Cool, eh?
That sounds like the deluxe edition.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful, and it's emerald green, no less. And guess who the publisher is? It's just a coincidence, though.
Yeah.
West.
Funny you mentioned silver earlier on. That's the currency I've been invoicing customs in.
Yeah, absolutely. They can only be invoiced in truth.
Yeah.
And when people start layering things, and I have I've got lots of very dear friends. In terms of this trail, I have two very dear friends that I've worked on and off with for the last number of years. And it is beyond ironic that we are, we've merged at the end of 3 different roads traveled to bring all of them together to see this beautiful thread singular. So there's the Trinity. There's that 3 again. And I know one is a Gemini, and I do believe the other one is Taurus in the Gemini or the 3rd deacon, which brings the Gemini. And I will say this, and it's not because Geminis are special. Well, every zodiac is special. You all have your job. But here's the thing about Geminis: we're the only ones that are allowed to upload and download from the Akashic. We're the only ones in the zodiac that are the spirits. Ask Santo; he'll tell you. I just do my job. I'm just a telephone operator. Anything you want that I can pass along to the Akashic? Oh, there's 90 seconds warning. Love it. Anything that just think of it and let me know, and I'll pass a message along to the invisible wizard. Fair?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
We've got to send some reminder notices for.
Well, we'll put together a couple of different reminder notices that will be a little bit more effectual, and we're going to have some fun. Now you know what goes on in my headphones when I'm trying to talk. 60 seconds drives me batty. I'm in the middle of a thought and it stops me. But we got less than a minute, so I want to thank all the listeners for tuning in tonight to Cosmic Blueprints and Outside the Box, way outside the box. Scott, it's been an absolute honor and privilege to have you here on Freedom Reigns Radio, Blog Talk Radio. Absolutely. And thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you, Kate. Thanks for having me.
Oh, hey, anytime. We'll definitely get you on in the near future just to share your victories and how everything turned out. But I got to say to everyone listening, pop by the freedomreigns.us website, and you can also get over to synchronicity.com, which is our new website that has myself, Santo, Tony, and a whole bunch of others there. So, again, thank you all for listening. Much love, and have yourselves a great weekend. Catch you sooner than later. Much love.
Cheers.
Yeah, we're off the air. All right, Scotty. Thank you so much, my friend. And I'll divulge a couple of things. You are known by your actions, and those that are acting and walking in peace can have this information. You've already earned it, so it'll blow your mind. I promise.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I look forward to that.
I would say it now, but we're recording, so that's for anyone that's got the download. Sorry, guys. You got to be in peace, and I got to see it before I'll share it. Anyway, so we'll catch you soon, okay, my friend?
Sounds good.
I'll pass you a copy of Ninths, okay, so that you have it. All right?
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Take care. We'll talk to you later.
Speak soon.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, Kate. Bye.
Hey, and welcome to Cosmic Blueprint Show with, your co-host, Kate of Gaia, just waiting for the host to show up, Tony Z. And we have a special guest tonight. We have Scott again. We've had Scott on before with his story of trying to import a car into Australia and the kind of stuff that he was exposing to show everyone that the Australian government is actually a corporation that is registered in none other than Washington, D.C., and, of course, for those that have been listening to Outside the Box and my silly little voice over the last couple of weeks will know that this game is a whole lot stranger than we ever thought it could have been. But that's another story. Hemi, the hamster on the riverbank. Tony, are you there? Your mic's hot.
Yeah, I'm here, Kate. How's it going, okay?
Good, yeah, we're good.
Cool.
Just
trying to bring Scott in right now.
Yeah, no worries.
He's having some trouble with Skype sending him around in circles, which is strange, to say the least. But,
that sounds more normal than not. So, but I mean, for those that remember, we had Scott. I had him on Outside the Box, I guess about a month ago now, and he was giving us the rundown from his video, which was absolutely hilarious. I have a shiny badge. Some of the things that he brought to the fore in that video, it was beyond funny. It was. It was madness, pure madness, and it showed the governments for exactly what they are: garbage, corporate fictions with people that don't know anything really about what's going on, and they get a sense of I call it ELSI, which is an acronym for elevated level of self-importance. I know many people with ELSI, and I guess that's probably the only thing that really drives me nuts when people get that, and can we just get along? So just waiting here. There he is. Got him on the board now. And Scott's mic is going hot. Tony, the show is yours.
Excellent. Like I say, I'm pleased to see everybody here tonight. Good to be back again. We have now got Scott in the chat room. And can you hear me, Scott?
Yeah, Tony, is that you?
Yeah, it is, mate. How are you getting on?
Yeah, better now that I've got all those Skype login things out of the way.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing. That sends you around in circles a few times, to say the least, doesn't it?
Yeah, no dramas.
Yeah, good to hear your voice, Scott. I guess we'll get an update on what's been going on over the last month since we had you on the air the last time.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Kate. Well, it's been really interesting, actually. Very positive feedback from a lot of folk writing in and sending emails in, ranging from those who had pretty much given up on the challenge, who've seen the documentary and gone, oh, okay, it's that simple, is it? I can just ask a question as to who they are. And it's been very encouraging, the number of emails that have come in from folk who've just gone, yeah, I'm back in the game now. And then to others who are really at a, I suppose, advanced stage of poking around. And, yeah, they've just been complimentary to be able to share it amongst their friends in a format that is actually, they've been able to look at it and enjoy it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing when you give people a little bit of confidence, and that's all it takes. And I've been talking about baby steps for a long time, and that's all it really needs is whenever they see it, how simple it is, and it really is. It's just a matter of asking questions to watch these people spin out. It's a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And no, that's the simple part about it is ultimately all we're doing is asking these questions in the battle. Yeah,
they've been re-inspired, and again, it only takes a handful of people to pick up the flag, unarmed, and to say, you know what? No, we're not going to take this anymore, and and I'm not saying for people to go into battle. It's just an analogy, people, just to give you what I'm trying to get across is that inspiration moment within, that deep welling knowingness that says there's something wrong. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto, and they decide to pick up the bucket of water of truth and melt the witch.
Yep. And you're right, it's that knowing inside you that you can do this. And it's the knowing, hang on a minute, I actually am the one who gives the power to the so-called government. So it's actually me that's the source of their power.
Mm-hmm.
And actually remembering that, if you like, because a lot of us seem to have forgotten it, when we get back to knowing that, and that the true power is within yourself, that's and it, like you said, it's not battling, it's just an analogy for changing your direction or your thinking.
Yeah.
To go, actually, yeah, I'm going to ask a few questions and poke around a little bit here and find out what's happening.
Yeah, it's like the scene in The Matrix when Neo finds himself, when he takes the pill, he finds himself in that vat as a battery cell, and he decides to rip the cables off.
Yep.
And that's what people are doing. They're starting to rip their own cables off. They're all becoming Neo. And that's where the consciousness is going to awaken, and it is, and it's awakening at an exponential rate. I don't know if everyone else is feeling it, but I sure as hell am. And it's something to behold.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. The feeling is just so positive. Everywhere you turn lately has been another unraveling of the Matrix.
Yep, it's happening everywhere, and it's not just on one thing as well, because the same pattern has been played over and over again, from pharmaceuticals to politics to laws to systems, constructs, everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yep, it's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we touched on a radio show recently was just the wording within, say, for example, the Australian Constitution. And it's been quite interesting to see people go, oh, yeah, actually it does say that in the Constitution. And they had been previously unaware of something as simple as just a couple of words in the Constitution.
Yeah, we
Go
talked
on.
about Kate's brilliant, absolutely awesome at etymology. What does constitution break down at, Kate? Can you tell us?
Oh, how many versions do you want?
You choose.
Okay, well, I'll give you the simple one. We'll start with the simple. Back in 1913, there's that Black's Law coming up again all the time. I'm just hooked on this thing. Anyway, Webster's 1913 dictionary decided to change. Well, a lot of things happened in 1913, but here's one of the key ones. Con used to mean against, all right, as in know your pros and cons, as in fors and against, right? Or without, for and without. And in 1913, they decided to, okay, well, we're going to make it mean, duality. It can mean for or against, right? So and again, it was a very helpful hint for us in seeing the duality of good and evil and everything. So now we have constitution. Statute means to stand or to have standing. So now we have withstanding or without standing. Then we can go into the sounds of the words. Constitution. Sounds like you're pushing it away. So there's a lot of back and forth with the magic in the word. But again, as anyone has listened in the past, that has all been decoded down to the literal Vesica Pisces creation of the flower of life, or the flow. And you were given a fraudulent receipt that you thought mattered, and all your identification was made with it and everything else. And anytime you used it, you were actually, in fact, using an unlawful and illegal name in fraud. How would that sit with you?
I think most people would be fairly disturbed as a result of hearing that.
Well, that's kind of where it is, and that's what we've uncovered. So that's we'll touch on that later. Tony has to jet out at the top of this hour because you're going over to Rents Radio, Tony?
Indeed, yeah. I've been asked on to Rents. They're doing a multicast over many different shows, and it's a bit of a marathon that they've got going there, trying to raise awareness. So I'm just trying to do a bit to help out.
Yeah, so we can kind of touch on that in the second hour, and I'm going to take you. Hey, Tony, remember the other day I said the answer had to be in Oz, down under?
Oh, totally. Yep.
Yeah. Well, the answer is in Oz, certainly down under, but not in the same way that most people think. But definitely, Scott, we're going to have a really, really cool and fun chat in the second hour. But I want you to. What you're doing and what you're inspiring with people is that beautiful, simplistic approach of the little engine that could. I know I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. Now we're going to get them to the point where they're at the crest of the hill and they're going over. I knew I could. I knew I could. And this is critical. This is the tipping point where every time I think of this, there's one scene from a movie that triggers with me. Did either of you guys ever see The Patriot? The Mel Gibson movie about the independence?
Well, a long time ago, I think.
Okay. Do you remember the scene right at the very end of the movie when the Cornwallis decided to throw all his reserves in, and we're going to end it here, and he sends all his reserves and rushes them forward in a bayonet charge, and as they crest the hill, then they see the bulk of the colonial army that was in hiding, basically an ambush, and when they were rushing up the hill to rout the British, it got to a bit of a stalemate, and some of the colonials started to retreat. And there was one scene where this young man was running, like retreating, and Mel Gibson had picked up the flag to rally the troops, so to speak, and he's not armed or anything, and he's carrying this flag and saying forward, march. And the scene that sticks in my head, and this is what I see the people at right now, is the kid is carrying his rifle and he's retreating, and then he sees Mel and he turns around and he goes, oh well, maybe we can do this, and he turns around and he started and that was for me, that was the absolute turning point of the battle. That's when the little engine that said I think I can turns into the I know I can. And every time, like what you've been talking about, and every time someone does this, that's exactly the picture I get in my mind, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. And what by the look of it, we'll look at in the second hour is the deeper or the bigger toolkit.
Oh, it's a big one. It's actually got a sledgehammer in the toolbox.
Brilliant.
Oh,
yeah. So yeah, I've definitely been working on the introductory material, you could say, for a lot of folk, and that's probably been very well received for all those folk who are sitting on the couch and up until this point didn't think they could, to use your words.
Yeah, you know.
And now it's like, okay, maybe we can. Maybe we can ask a few questions around, and it's been really good, the number of folk who've gone, you know what, actually, it's not good enough anymore. I'm not going to pay this money. I'm not going to pay this mob. I'm going to ask them first for evidence that they're legitimate or lawful. And that's been very encouraging. That I suppose it's like that little guy with his rifle turning around and going, okay, I'm now going back. And the embarrassing thing for those claiming to be government is that when they don't answer these questions now after, I mean, for me, I've been pushing this for over 12 months, is it just looks really, really embarrassing. It just cements their position as, we don't have the answer, we're not going to answer, or they just look...
They look absolutely ridiculous, and that's the thing. I'd mentioned at the outside of the show about ELSE, my anachronism for elevated level of self-importance, and that's what all these government people suffer from. And when they're actually handed something that they cannot answer to see their complete inadequacy in the office that they are claiming to be holding, that takes a lot of the air out of their sails. When all of a sudden, it's not just, they can't hide behind a badge, they can't hide behind a title, they can't hide behind a desk, and they can't hide behind their secretary, because now all of a sudden they're held accountable, and they get to expose themselves for the lack of knowledge they truly have.
Yeah, I heard you mention earlier on about the look at my badge, and that seems to be going around Australia quite well at the moment. That
was the funniest bit in the whole thing, and it's so true. Look at my badge. I don't have to answer you. Look at my badge.
The ironic thing was, each one of those little cartoons was based on something that effectively happened. You got the Department of Transport essentially saying, get stuffed. You've got generic stuff cut and pasted into a letter that is at the end of a chain of whole sequences of direct communication and even invoices, and you get this bit of generic crap cut and pasted into the bottom of a letter that says, if you have any specific inquiries, I suggest you contact your broker. So each one of those little cartoons actually had a full element of truth in it. And I thought that was a great way of lightening it up a little bit for those who still see this as a very deep subject.
Yeah, I was going to say it's about as deep as a bowl of soup. Tony?
Yeah, I was going to say, have you had any official responses from any officials of any kind as to any kind of, I don't know, I suppose you could say recognition for one thing and confirmation for another?
No, absolute silence. So I suppose we've got more frequently unanswered questions. The interesting thing has been that a lot of people have been taking up that documentary as a tool and sending it off to their ministers or politicians or whatever, those who call themselves representatives, and they've been using it as a tool and saying, well, excuse me, Mr. Minister, could you please comment? Could you please give me some guidance on this to see if it's actually happening? And the overwhelming response to that has just been absolute silence. So they're getting more of the same thing that they're asking about. But the good thing has been people who haven't really got a deep founding in this sort of subject have just been able to use that documentary as a tool, cut and paste it into an email and send it off, and kind of blame me in many ways. But then a couple of folk I've noticed have been writing in to their ministers saying, well, I'm getting a little bit concerned now. You haven't responded to my earlier questions. I'm starting to think that this situation has got some merit, and that you are working for a company, and you're not really representing me at all. What's going on?
Exactly.
And so they're turning the heat up, but using a tool and keeping themselves at a little bit of distance, so it's quite safe for them. And yet they've happily jumped in and gone, well, yeah, I'm going to ask my minister and see what he's got to say about this.
Yeah, it's interesting. This sort of thing's happening all over the planet. It's really good, and it's good to see when you put a lot of hard work and a lot of hard effort into putting something together like that. All you want is people to use it, isn't it? That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. So that's been great, and even from all around the world, Canada, the US, the response has been great. The Canadians have jumped on board. Because I think they're probably the most closely associated with this sort of setup that we've got. So yeah, it's been well received all round.
Awesome. Have you had any sort of like well-known individuals come back to you and say, hey, that's some film you've put together or anything?
Well, I suppose I've done a handful of interviews now. None such from any... I suppose celebrities, if you like, although I've taken to calling the various government departments that go and have a look at my website as celebrities, because they're kind of high-profile actors, really. But that's we've had quite a few of the government departments. We've had Minister for Home Affairs, which was the boss of Customs. We've had the Federal Police were in there the other day. The Parliament House was poking around quite nicely, learning about letters patent. The Department of Lands was in there. Department of Education, Employment and Workplace Relations were having a look. Department of Parliamentary Services in Western Australia. There's quite a long list of these so-called departments that have been having a look, but we don't know whether that's just folk who are going, oh, that's interesting, and share that round the lunchroom or the coffee machine, or whether it's actually various folk in government who are sitting up going, oh, maybe I better pay attention to this and see whether my next website that I should be looking at is the employment jobs for sale or jobs for hire website.
Well, maybe they've actually all been found out and they're actually thinking, oh, right, who can I blame this on? And there's nobody stood there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good set a fire under them now and again, isn't it? Warm the heat up a little bit and get them. Maybe there are quite a lot of people in there that were doing these what they thought were upstanding jobs, working for organisations that they thought were genuine and upstanding, and then beginning to realise, well, hang on a minute, where's the evidence?
Yeah.
And the evidence actually leads them in the opposite direction, not in the direction they thought that it did. For those that are naive enough to think that they were working on the right side. Yeah.
Well, the good thing, I think, has been the distilling it down into what the real essence of how to go about asking these questions of so-called government. And it's mirrored quite nicely with the states. And there's been a couple of documentaries and videos around that I've been watching with the states, where they're pointing back to, I think, 1871 and the introduction of their second constitution, or the corporate one. And I suppose the same thing goes for Australia, Canada, UK, is to identify if you've got that possibility of there being two systems, whether they run in parallel or one's just being completely left behind. But if you can find the evidence of there being two of the same thing, that gives you the tools to be able to poke around as to which one's legitimate.
Okay, I was gonna maybe toss another perspective at you.
Yep.
Something that everyone listening right now probably doesn't know. Well, actually, the ones that tune into Freedom Range regularly know exactly where I'm going. I don't shop at Walmart. I go straight to the deal counter. there's no real easy way to say this, but effectively, it goes far beyond 2 layers. And we have dug and dug and dug, and we finally hit the tink, tink, tink top of the treasure chest. And I mean that quite literally. And just something to think about. We'll go off on this another time. I just want you guys to continue. I just want to. What do you think would happen if you're just? This is just a toss it out there. What do you think would happen if your birth certificate never kind of made it to where it was supposed to?